Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're remarkably well. Well, we're on the final part of our story tonight, which is very exciting, because Nancy has taken her grandchild for a walk in the woodgrove. She's investigating the possibility of there being a vagrant on the property because some strange things have happened that defy explanation, like a gooey butter cake going missing when it was cooling on the porch. So she's thinking somebody's out there, and she certainly feels watched all the time. So she's going to search the woodgrove to see if there's any sign of somebody possibly camping out there, because it has happened before to her, so she's not unused to this happening. But as she goes into the woodgrove with her grandson, she loses some time. It just goes missing. 4 hours of her day just simply vanish, or 5 hours, and she's wondering where on earth it got to. So let's continue with our story, but before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's continue with the final part of our story tonight. Nancy tried to go over everything in her mind. How could she have lost time? It didn't make any sense. She tried to recall the morning in all its parts. She had returned from Dr. Carter's office at about 11:30. When she'd got back home, she had given Keegan a feed. She'd had a quick sandwich herself, and at 1 o'clock they'd both gone together for a stroll in the woodgrove. So what had happened to the 4 missing hours? She hadn't even fallen asleep, or at least she didn't believe she had, for she never experienced any grogginess that often comes before you just nod off. It would seem 4 hours had vanished. She had no memory of this time, the time between 1 and 5. What on earth was going on with her? Apart from anything else, she hadn't even heard her cell phone ringing for over 10 times in a row. Nancy began to panic as she imagined how Melinda would react to not being able to get in touch with her. So she quickly dialed Melinda's number back, thinking of a perfect excuse that would be acceptable enough for her daughter, as the last thing she wanted was to tell her daughter about her paradoxical experience of missing time. Melinda would likely think her mother was losing her mind and couldn't be trusted in taking care of baby Keegan. So Nancy knew that despite the bewildering events of missing time that had transpired over the last 4 hours or so, she certainly couldn't share them with her daughter. "Mum! Thank goodness you answered your cell! Where have you been? I've been calling you dozens of times over and you never answered. Is everything all right with Keegan? I've been in such a panic." "But of course, darling, everything's absolutely fine. Keegan is in very good spirits. Nothing is wrong over here, I can assure you of that." "But Mum, I called you dozens of times. Why didn't you answer?" "Oh, about that, sweetheart. I changed my appointment with Dr. Carter, didn't I, for this afternoon? I left my cell phone in the car, forgot all about it. Took little Keegan for a walk in a stroller around town," she lied. "I'm very sorry if I alarmed you." "Mum, you have no idea what you've just put me through. I've been so worried out of my mind. I hate it when you don't answer my calls." "Well, I'm very sorry, darling. I didn't mean to alarm you. I apologize." "So what did Dr. Carter have to say?" "Well, he thinks I've got the magical touch with baby Keegan," said Nancy. "He does?" "Yes, he's very pleased with Keegan's progress, and very surprised, I have to say. He said the last time he saw Keegan was in rather poor health, and he was very concerned about him, but didn't want to alarm you at the time. And he thought when Keegan came for his appointment this afternoon, that Keegan would, be declining in his health, as he has been, since he was born, really, all the struggles he's been having, so to speak. But so he was absolutely amazed by how brimming with health Keegan is. I told him the colic had all but disappeared, and that Keegan doesn't keep us all awake at night because he doesn't scream like he used to, and is much more settled. He was really amazed by all this." "Well, that's a relief to hear, isn't it? Oh, I'm so pleased that Dr. Carter was saying all this, and that, Keegan is putting on weight. That's the best news ever. Oh, just so you know, Mum, I'm meeting up with a friend later for a light snack. so I'll be home at about 8. I just wanted to check base with you, to make sure everything is all right with Keegan, and to find out how the appointment with Dr. Carter went. I'm so relieved everything's looking good." "You mustn't worry so much, my dear. I'm not a machine, you know. I'm human. I can't be glued to my cell phone 24/7. Maybe some people are, but I'm not like that. I may remind you I'm not from your generation, sweetheart, so if I don't answer a call at once, you mustn't panic in the way you do. Usually when you don't hear from someone, it's good news. It's when I call you that you need to worry, because that is when I might be reporting something a little troubling, like Keegan getting a temperature perhaps. But when I don't contact you or answer your call for some reason, just relax, or you'll give yourself a heart attack. I know what it's like being a mother, but if you worry, you'll make yourself really ill. That's all I'm saying." "You're right, Mum. What am I like? I worry so much. Keegan couldn't be in better hands with you." Nancy was shaking as she replaced the cell phone in her denim shirt. She hated lying to her daughter, but the last thing she wanted to do was worry Melinda. But the two questions that plagued her mind incessantly were, why did she not hear her cell phone when Melinda had called about 10 times? And what on earth had happened during those 4 hours in the day? Where had they disappeared to? For she had no memory of them at all. When Nancy returned to the house to give Keegan a feeding, he didn't appear remotely interested in the milk that she'd warmed up for him. He wasn't hungry, and his belly seemed full. And weirder still, the nappy he'd previously been wearing had been removed, and his bottom was so clean, with no sign of soiling. So what was going on? Nancy put a fresh nappy on Keegan and thought about the strange shadowy figure she was sure she'd seen standing by the stream. After she observed that figure, the rest of her day had vanished. She had no memory of it. Was the missing time she'd experienced something to do with the stranger that she thought she'd seen? She couldn't be sure. "Don't get yourself in such a state about this," she told herself firmly. "Keegan is in the best health, and that's all that matters. If I start fretting when Melinda returns home this evening, she's going to pick up on my angst, and I can't have that. The last thing I need is for my daughter to believe I'm not responsible enough in taking care of my grandson. I'm going to forget this ever happened. Move on with my life. That's the best thing to do." The following morning Melinda went for her morning jog as usual, but this time she took Keegan in his stroller, wrapping him up warmly, as there was a pronounced chill in the air. She was so delighted with the turnaround in Keegan's health, and it did seem that ever since she had returned to work at the hair and nail salon, his health had improved exponentially. His colic had all but disappeared, and he appeared to be sleeping soundly at night, without constantly waking up the entire household with his loud screams. He was gaining weight, even though he appeared to be only drinking half as much of the milk she pumped out for him. It would seem her mother was doing a great job in taking care of her baby boy, so she really needed to quit worrying so much. Her mother was right about that. She shouldn't panic. If her mother didn't answer her cell, she knew if anything was wrong with Keegan, she would know about it for sure. So she needed to let go of being this paranoid over her baby boy. But wasn't it a mother's prerogative to be naturally protective over her baby? Keegan seemed so happy in his stroller this morning. He appeared to enjoy the momentum of being wheeled forwards down the path through the trees. Melinda suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. She held on to the stroller so tightly with one hand that her knuckles began to show. She looked nervously around the woodgrove. Someone was watching her. She was sure of it. And that was when she saw her, a tall, lofty, shadowy figure, standing next to a tree, looking directly at her through a pair of dark eyes. Melinda stared at the figure in disbelief, as it seemed to nod at her politely. There was no way she could be seeing right, no way on God's earth. She involuntarily just closed her eyes, as if she was not trusting what she was physically seeing with her eyes. But when she opened them again, nothing was there. Had she imagined what she'd seen? She began to doubt herself, but she was certain only moments before she had physically seen a female Bigfoot with large bosoms that seemed swollen with milk. almost as if she was breastfeeding. The Bigfoot looked straight at her and had nodded in a friendly way. It was at this point that she had closed her eyes for that brief second, but when she'd opened them again, the Bigfoot had vanished from her sight. When you see something that happens so quickly, in what seems like mere seconds in time, and then it vanishes before your very eyes, it's easy to doubt what you believe you've seen. And that was Melinda's experience. She decided not to tell her mother about the outlandish events because it was so weird, and it was likely her mother would believe that her daughter had taken on too much at work and was pushing herself too hard, and as a consequence seeing things that weren't actually there. And maybe that is exactly what had happened. Melinda was so tired of late, not from being kept up and about by her son's colic, as that wasn't happening any more, but by all the worry and stress of returning to work. She had been more than a little flustered with the mess that Kirsty had left behind after she'd taken her maternity leave. She felt overwhelmed by it all. So there was a very distinct possibility that in her fatigue she had imagined what she'd seen. Melinda had never believed that Bigfoots existed in her mind's eye. All these Bigfoot encounters people claimed to have had in North America over the years were, in her opinion, completely fictitious, but now she was wondering whether what she had seen had been real or not. After Melinda had said her goodbyes to her mother and to baby Keegan, she had promptly left for work, and Nancy had taken Keegan off to her sister Marjorie's house, so that her sister would take care over Keegan for her, while she went off to town to do the family grocery shop. Marjorie Stanhope was Nancy Stratton's older sister. She'd never been married before. She had no children or grandchildren, which was something she deeply regretted, so she certainly considered it a privilege to take care of little Keegan for Nancy while she went shopping. "Keegan looks so healthy, doesn't he?" she said, looking both delighted and somewhat surprised, as the last time she'd seen Keegan, he had looked small and undernourished, but now he was all smiles. His rosy cheeks had become somewhat chubby. She took Keegan lovingly in her arms and stared down at his adorable face. "I've never seen him look so well. Look at him. He's the picture of happiness, isn't he? Has the colic really gone?" she asked, looking almost mystified by this. "Yes, it's gone," said Nancy. "It's such a relief off Melinda's mind, let me tell you. Dr. Carter was extremely impressed with his progress. He couldn't believe it was the same baby that I was bringing back to him 2 weeks later. He said the turnaround in Keegan's health is phenomenal." "That's incredible," said Marjorie happily. "There's nothing worse than dealing with a colically baby, is there? It's miserable for all concerned, especially when you're kept awake at all the hours God sends." "It sure is," Nancy admitted, wondering privately whether to share with her sister Marjorie her experience of the missing time she'd had in the woodgrove. Marjorie was still holding Keegan in her arms. She looked up at her sister with a rather bemused expression on her face. "What's up with you, Nancy? You look as if there's something weighing heavily on your mind. Out with it. You know I'm a great listener, always have been." She suddenly looked concerned. Oh dear, it's not what I think, is it? You're not regretting taking on the responsibility of watching over Keegan while Melinda is at work, are you? I worried this might happen. I mean, if it's all too much for you, I think you should be honest and tell your daughter how you feel. She could always organize an au pair or someone to take care of him. I'm sure Melinda would be perfectly understanding about this. I mean, looking after a baby is a big full-time responsibility, and it's not a job for the faint-hearted. And you shouldn't be ashamed if you've taken on more than you can chew." Nancy sighed. "I wish it was that easy, I really do. It's not what you think, Marjorie, not at all. Granted, you've always been perceptive. But you're right, something is up with me. I'm struggling with a few personal demons, you could say, at the moment. But it hasn't got anything to do with looking after Keegan. That part of things is an absolute privilege as far as I'm concerned, and I've adored every minute of being a grandmother to him. He's such a precious little baby, And without the colic, it's been a breeze taking care of him. And I really mean that." "Well, that's a relief, isn't it?" said Marjorie. "So out with it then, Nancy. What kind of demons are you wrestling with? You know they say a problem shared is a problem halved, and you've always been able to talk to me. I mean, what is a big sister for? If I'm not here to listen to your stories, or what it is that's troubling you, of course." It was in that moment that Nancy decided to confide in Marjorie and tell her about her strange experience in the woodgrove with the missing time. "I know it sounds bizarre, but it really happened," she told Marjorie, expecting her sister to think she was going completely loopy. Instead, Marjorie Stanhope looked reflectful. "Well, I've heard of people experiencing missing time before. This is not a first to me." "You have?" asked Nancy, looking hopeful. "What do you think it all means?" "I'm not sure," said Marjorie, "but I definitely don't think you're losing your mind, Nancy, if that makes you feel any better. I believe it really happened to you. I 100% believe you. It's very strange that soon after you saw this obscure shadowy figure, you have no recollection of what happened to 4 hours of time. That's very bizarre. It's such a pity you couldn't see this figure more clearly. But that's because you weren't wearing your long-distance glasses, which I've lectured you about over and over again, have I not? I don't understand why you won't wear them, Nancy. I personally would hate to go around the place half-blind like you obviously do. But against all the odds, you don't seem to mind living like a mole." "I'm not blind, Marjorie. I struggle to see things clearly from a distance. It's not much of a hindrance to me. Not really." "Well, I beg to disagree on this one. I mean, you didn't get to see what that shadowy figure was, did you? Because you were literally blind. And I think you should wear your glasses. I'm now wondering what it is that you saw. But I do believe unequivocally that the shadowy silhouette is connected to your missing time. You lost about 4 hours, didn't you? And then Belinda tried to contact you, phoning you several times, and you never answered. You never heard her calls. I personally find that absolutely extraordinary." "Well, I'm so glad you don't think I'm going mad," said Nancy, looking heartily relieved. "Some strange things have certainly happened to me. Too many to count, actually. I must admit, the last time I saw that same shadowy figure, I was relaxing on the porch, doing some knitting, and then I was completely consumed with exhaustion, unexplainable exhaustion, and that was it. I was out like a light, and there was no way for me to stop it." "So you've seen the shadowy thing before?" asked Marjorie, looking somewhat stumped. "Well, why didn't you say?" "Well, there really is not much to say, Marjorie, other than I have felt watched for a long time, every time I'm out there on the porch, so to speak. And that was when I looked towards the woodgrove, and that's when I observed the obscure figure. It seemed to stand on the edge of the woods, next to a tree or two, just looking at me. Then moments after I saw this figure, I just drifted off to sleep. And then the same thing happened when I was in the woods, sitting by the stream, and I saw the figure again. And then I lost my awareness of my immediate surroundings and realized that 4 hours of time had just simply vanished. Well, this must mean the figure you saw has some kind of power over you. I mean, when you saw him in the woods, you have no memory of what happened next, but realized you were missing 4 hours of time, and that Keegan had been placed in his stroller. So tell me more about these extraordinary incidents, when you just fall asleep after you see this thing, almost as if you go into some kind of trance. It's absolutely extraordinary." Nancy told Marjorie about the strange idiosyncratic things that had happened to her, and Marjorie listened to her story attentively, with wide eyes. She appeared somewhat bewildered by Nancy's bizarre confessions. "Well, as I was saying, every time you see the strange silhouette, you zone out for a while, don't you? You lose all track of time. It's bizarre, it really is. And as I keep saying, it's got something to do with the shadowy figure. It's obviously connected in some way, because you zone out and lose all sense of time, don't you? Well, you haven't heard the half of it, Marjorie. The other day I made a gooey butter cake for Melinda, so when she returned home she'd have a sweet treat. She adores gooey butter cake. It's her absolute favourite, always has been. So I made the cake, covered the tin with a cloth, and let it outside to cool on the porch, so to speak. And then I brought it straight back in. And when I inspected the tin later, all the cake was missing, and in its place was a fossil with a fern on it. Marjorie chuckled. Come on, sis. Level with me on this one. You ate the gooey butter cake, did you not? You felt decidedly guilty about it, so you wiped it clean from your mind. You're forgiven for that. We all know what gooey butter cake is like. If you have it around the house, it doesn't last 2 minutes. Believe me, there are times in my life I refuse to remember what I've eaten, in the way of naughty stuff, so to speak, because I would be incessantly plagued by guilt, and, of course, a weak sense of self-control. Nancy felt decidedly annoyed with Marjorie for assuming she'd eaten an entire tin of gooey butter cake. All right, Marjorie, supposing I did eat all the cake, which I assure you I did not. Explain to me, will you, where the fossil of the fern came from? It was lying in the tin, almost as if someone was gifting me for the cake, paying me back in kind, so to speak, with a fossil. The fossil is beautiful. I've put it on the mantel with my other prized possessions because I really, really like it. I would have actually swapped the gooey butter cake for the fossil if given the chance. But I wasn't given the option. Someone ate the gooey butter cake. I know they did. And hand on heart, it wasn't me. Even though it is a guilty pleasure of mine, I will admit that. Marjorie was flummoxed. You're right. The fossil you found, well, it doesn't make any sense. So if someone did eat the gooey butter cake, as you claims, well, it means someone's on your property, doesn't it? As gooey butter cake doesn't eat itself up. That's my point exactly, Marjorie. So what do you think is going on? The reason I went for a stroll in the woodgrove in the first place with little Keegan in the stroller was to look for any signs of a vagrant living on the property. This wouldn't be the first time it's happened. If you can remember, it happened once before. Yes, I remember, said Marjorie, nodding soberly. You told me all about the incident. Did you find any signs of someone living on the grove? No, I did not. I was sitting by the stream with Keegan on my lap, after I had looked for any signs of a vagrant, and that was when I saw that blurry humanoid silhouette. And then, without even falling asleep, 4 hours just disappeared, and Keegan was no longer on my lap. But he had been placed in the stroller with his blanket around him. I did not put him there, so who did? Furthermore, I noticed his belly was swollen, like it becomes swollen once he's enjoyed a good feeding. His nappy had also been removed from underneath his onesie. It was nowhere to be seen. And I did not remove it. But he looked like his bum had been cleaned up. There was no soiling. His bottom was perfectly clean. Now try and explain that to me. If that's not outlandish enough for you, just so you know, I took Keegan back home. I tried to give him a feed once again, but he wasn't interested in his mother's milk. He's never been more healthy, is putting on a respectable amount of weight, and yet he's not eating like he used to eat when he was undernourished. Try and explain this to me. Well, I can't explain it to you, Nancy. It's very bizarre, I will admit that. Well, it's only since these strange events have been happening to me, Marjorie, with the so-called missing time, and my involuntarily falling asleep, that Keegan appears to be sleeping unusually well. Putting on a mystical amount of weight, he's happy and healthy. Before that, the colic was a major problem, but after Melinda returned to work, everything got so much better. Dr. Carter thinks I've got the magic touch as a grandmother. But something is going on here. that defies rational explanation. Keegan used to be undernourished and very sickly, and now he appears to be thriving. I just don't know what on earth is going on. Well, I can't say I understand what is going on either, sis. All I can say is it sounds very mysterious to me, and I suspect you need answers. Of course I need answers, Marjorie. I was hoping your insight might be able to help me. I'd like to believe that I'm not going stark raving mad. You're not going mad, Nancy, said Marjorie, looking for a moment as if she was locked up in thought. Do you by any chance have any of Kenneth's trail cameras on the property? Well, I do have one, as it happens, Nancy admitted. Well, why don't you hang it up so it overlooks the porch? So, if you do happen to fall asleep, maybe you can see what's going on, when you're out for the count, so to speak. Marjorie, you're brilliant. Why didn't I think of that myself? I'll definitely give that a shot. It's a fabulous idea. I'm not sure if it'll work for you, Nancy. But let's just say trail cameras take pictures when they detect movement. So I hope that it will pick up something for you. My suggestion is that you wear your long-distance glasses, so if you're on the porch and you happen to see the shadowy figure again, you might get a better look at whatever it is that you think might be watching you. I hope to God, for your sake, it's not some kind of alien from outer space. There's so many reports of missing time connected with alien encounters, aren't there? You think an alien might be on my property? Asked Nancy, looking somewhat bewildered. An alien that happens to like gooey butter cake? I didn't think you believed in stuff like that, Marjorie. You do surprise me. Oh, I don't believe in aliens. I really don't, Marjorie admitted. But every time you hear about so-called alien abductions, you hear of missing time, don't you? And that is what I'm getting at here. Well, I hope you're not right. I don't fancy the idea of having an alien on my property, said Nancy. Imagine if I was being taken into a spacecraft during this missing time and being prodded and poked by some kind of bizarre creature from out of space. The thought is just too terrifying for words. For goodness sake, Nancy, don't get unduly alarmed. My suggestion is you put up that trail camera, and then if you do happen to drift off while you're on the porch watching over little Keegan, you can review the shots afterwards and see if anything untoward is actually going on. It might put your mind at rest. It certainly won't put my mind at rest, Marjorie, if nothing is going on, so to speak. What if I do see that shadowy figure? Then I fall asleep, but nothing happens. Does that mean I'm as mad as a March hare? You hear of psychotic people seeing spiders climbing walls. They see things that aren't real. What if that is happening to me? What if I'm physically seeing things that aren't actually there? What if that shadowy figure is all in my imagination? What if I was the one that ate the gooey butter cake? What if I am losing my mind? Oh, goodness gracious, listen to yourself, Nancy. You really are overwrought. You insisted you didn't eat that gooey butter cake. And you do sense that something is going on, and I believe you. I wouldn't worry if you don't detect anything on the trail camera. You just have been taking care of Keegan, haven't you? And it's a full-time job. It's very stressful. Maybe you've become absent-minded, very sleepy. After all, it's a big responsibility taking care of a little one, is it not? Well, all I can say, I hope, Marjorie, that I do find something, because if I don't, I really will think I'm losing my mind. It was later that afternoon that Nancy decided that she would install one of her late husband's trail cameras on the porch, so that she could see if anything untoward did happen when she drifted off to sleep while watching over her grandson, so that if anything did happen, she might catch it on camera. The afternoon was bright, and prisms of sunlight happily bounced across the porch, almost as if it was beckoning Nancy to spend some quality time out of doors, lapping up the sun like a contented cat. Nancy placed Keegan in his portable cot. He looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes, gurgling happily. These days he was so serene, so easy to take care of. Such a pleasure. Genevieve was lying on the patio sunning herself in a patch of sunshine that she had greedily grabbed for herself. Once again her bright yellow eyes fixed steadily on the tapestry bag that Nancy was opening as she sat back on the Adirondack chair. Nancy pulled out a fresh new ball of wool to start her knitting project all over again, as her previous attempts to knit had failed miserably. The wool had been torn to shreds by Genevieve. Genevieve was lying on the patio, sunning herself in a patch of sunshine that she'd greedily snatched for herself. Once again her bright yellow curious eyes fixed on the tapestry bag that Nancy was beginning to open as she sat back on the Adirondack chair. She pulled out the fresh new ball of wool to start her knitting project all over again, for her previous attempts to knit had failed miserably, for the wool had been torn to shreds by her cat. Genevieve blinked and looked very content lying across the wooden floor, but her eyes remained steadily fixed on the ball of wool as Nancy cast on some new stitches. She chuckled as she eyed her mischievous cat. "I'm sorry, Genevieve. Not this time. I'm not going to fall asleep," she told the cat. "You're not going to get those nasty sharp talons of yours into my knitting. You hear me?" Genevieve rolled over on her back happily, allowing the white feathery fur of her stomach to embrace the sunshine like a warm hug. Genevieve always exposed her belly when she was contented. She thoroughly enjoyed spending time on the porch with Nancy and baby Keegan. Nancy put on her long-distance glasses so that she would prepare herself in case she was to see the strange silhouette staring at her from the trees. This time she might be able to focus on what this thing she was seeing actually was. 25 minutes went by, and the afternoon seemed to chug away happily like a steam train, ambling through the countryside at a leisurely pace. Nancy was pleased that this time she wasn't falling asleep. At one point she happened to glance over her knitting and cast her gaze towards the lofty labyrinth of trees that formed the woodgrove. And that was when she saw her. No, it couldn't be. It just could not be. Nancy was rattled, so much so that her ball of wool rolled off her lap and onto the floor, and Genevieve, who thought the ball of wool had come out to play with her again, bounced up in sheer delight and began attacking it frenziedly. Nancy was caught up in the moment. She didn't even notice Genevieve and the ball of wool. She stared at the woodgrove in bemusement, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing was real. But the long-distance glasses she was wearing did not lie. She could not remain in denial for a moment longer. She was seeing a Bigfoot, a female Bigfoot standing by the trees looking at her. She was tall and lofty, robust in size and stature. Before Nancy could react in any way, she found her eyes growing extremely heavy again. She couldn't fight against the exhaustion that had overtaken her, and she drifted off into sleep. While Nancy slept, she had a lucid dream, where the details were colourfully vivid, so much so that later she was to believe that the dream was actually real. In the dream, Nancy observed a female Bigfoot gliding towards the porch with a nimble grace, trotting up the steps and moving towards the cot where Keegan lay fast asleep. Nancy could observe Genevieve on the floor, tearing her wool apart and seemingly ignoring the tall, lofty stranger. The female Bigfoot leant over the cot, and little Keegan appeared to be gurgling in delight. She then lifted up a delighted Keegan in her overlong arms and squatted on the floor with him, offering him a teat from one of her oversized breasts. Keegan suckled happily, and the Bigfoot rocked the baby very gently in her arms. She then replaced Keegan back in the cot and removed a dirty diaper from his bottom, wiping Keegan clean with the back of the diaper. She then placed the dirty diaper on the Adirondack chair. The Bigfoot played with little Keegan for a while, talking to him tenderly in a strange language. Gitanda, kilatika, sokolosi, manikasi, Washinata. Then she finally got up to leave, but as she did so she stood in front of Nancy, whose head was sloped to one side. As she was so deep in sleep, it was like she was seeing herself outside of her own body in the sleep-like state, which was extremely unusual and very weird. What happened next in the dream was so profound for Nancy, for she heard the female Bigfoot speaking to her. "My work is done. I'm going away. The baby is better now. I have a baby of my own to look after. But this baby was so sick, I had to help. I couldn't sit by idly and not do anything to help. I hope I haven't been too much of an intrusion. He should be fine now. Take good care of him. He's a very special little boy." And with that she turned around and glided away. It was a while later that Nancy woke up with a start. Her cell phone was ringing. She glanced down at the caller ID, expecting it to be her daughter on the cell, but to her surprise it was her sister Marjorie. "Hello, sis." "Oh, it's you," said Nancy. "You've just woken me up. I hope you realise that, sis. So you did fall asleep again, like all the other times in the afternoon. Did you see the shadowy figure again?" she asked excitedly. "Did you see what it was? It wasn't an alien, was it, by any chance?" For a moment Nancy said nothing, and Marjorie thought they had lost a signal. "Nancy? Nancy, are you there? Are you there?" "Yes, I'm here. You woke me up. I'm just trying to get my bearings. So did you see the shadowy figure or not? It's clear you fell asleep. You do sound rather groggy, I have to say." "I did see the shadowy figure," Nancy admitted. "And what was it? It wasn't an alien, was it? Not one of those mantis beings, perhaps?" "It wasn't an alien, and no, it wasn't a mantis being from outer space. Oh, I've been reading all about them, ever since you told me about this missing time. And I'm beginning to believe that aliens might very well be real. And apparently these mantis beings, well, they really are something, you know." "No, I never saw a mantis being. I keep telling you I didn't." "Well, what did you see? Oh, you saw the vagrant, did you? That's been dossing out on your property?" asked Marjorie, sounding somewhat disappointed. "No, I didn't see that, as it happens. I saw a female Bigfoot." "You what?" asked Marjorie, sounded so taken aback, for this was the last thing she was expecting to hear. "You heard me?" "Yes, I did hear you, Nancy. You say you saw a Bigfoot. Did you really? Or are you winding me up?" "I'm not winding you up. I saw a Bigfoot. And after I saw that Bigfoot, the same thing happened to me. So I know the Bigfoot was the shadowy figure that I'd been seeing all along. For soon after I saw the Bigfoot, I drifted off to sleep and woke up again. But I had a very lucid dream. The Bigfoot was in my dream. She was nursing Keegan with her breasts that were full of milk, and then after she fed him, she spoke to me, in my dream, that is. Nancy, you're sounding completely over the top talking like this. Do you realize how crazy you sound? Now I am beginning to worry that you may be going mad. There is no way a female Bigfoot has been nursing Keegan and causing you to fall asleep. I don't even know if Bigfoots are real, and none of this makes any sense to me at all. Well, I promise you, she was real, and what I'm telling you is true," said Nancy. "My dream was vivid, and I've got a feeling it might have actually been real. Or I was meant to remember it, because she spoke to me, the female Bigfoot, in my dream. I remember her words, word for word." "She spoke to you in your dream? I mean, how is that possible?" "I don't know how it's possible, Marjorie, but it happened. Are you trying to say you don't believe what I'm telling you?" "It's not that I don't believe you, Nancy, but you've got to admit it. This is very weird. So tell me, what did the Bigfoot actually say to you?" "She told me she knew Keegan had been a sickly baby. She said she was a nursing mother, with a baby of her own.
She wanted to help Keegan get better. So she nursed him with her milk. She said her work was now done and he was a better baby, and she apologized for being so intrusive. Well, I don't know what to say, Nancy, but I have to admit, it does make all the missing pieces suddenly fit together. Let's face it, Keegan has suffered from dreadful colic, and he's been a very sickly baby. Very ill. And then he stops eating but appears to gain weight. And now he's robustly healthy, with colour in his cheeks and a happy disposition. Maybe the Bigfoot's milk made him better. Probably because living out in the wild like she does, she has invaluable antibodies that maybe we humans don't have. This is completely insane. You better check the trail camera to see if you've caught her on it, perhaps. Oh, I'd forgotten about the trail camera. I'll definitely do that. To cut a long story short, Nancy was to find that the trail camera had been repositioned, and although she saw a flash of something in the camera, when it was being turned around, the figure appeared so obscure you couldn't make anything out. For years Nancy never told her daughter Melinda about the strange events that had happened to her when she'd first started taking care of baby Keegan, until one day they compared notes, and Melinda admitted that she had seen a Bigfoot in the woods on a morning jog, but after the encounter that had felt so surreal, she was convinced her eyes had deceived her. Melinda remained living with her mother. She married a man called Luton, who fitted in with their living arrangements superbly. She went on to have 2 more baby boys with Luton, but luckily the 2 boys that she had with him never had colic, and the large house was filled with laughter and fun. Keegan grew up to be a strong, healthy young man. He was never inclined to get infections that other children were predisposed to, for he had an extraordinary immune system on him. Nancy believes this was because he was nursed by a female Bigfoot. She never saw the Bigfoot again, nor did she fall asleep again on the porch while watching over little Keegan, or lose any more missing time that she couldn't account for. She believes to this very day that Keegan would have continued to be a very sickly baby, had it not been for the kind intervention of a female Bigfoot that ensured that her son's immune system became absolutely robust. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.